I'm proud to be the chair of such a great organization, and you're going to hear about some of the great things that are going on within JCA as well as hear from three great honorees tonight. First of all, I just want to welcome everybody for coming out for this special evening where we honor the memory of Father Joseph Biltz by recognizing those in the community who give their time and energy for the cause of social justice, which is what JCA is all about. And many would say that of the events that JCA does, this is probably the funnest event, the one that people look forward to the most, because we call it a gathering of friends and many people running to folks they haven't seen in a while. So we think this is one of the funnest events that we do within JCA. In the spirit of friendship and recognition, I want to recognize a couple people. In the back of the room, we have Doris Crane, and she's just been a wonderful friend of JCA. She's taking photographs. You'll see her running around, but she's at every event that we have, and she's a tremendous friend and asset. We also have Dan Weathersby. He's back there making video. He's also a great friend of JCA. I would also like to recognize any board members of JCA. If you would, please stand, if you're a board member of JCA. And I'm going to go off script just a little bit here. I want to recognize the JCA staff, because I'm going to tell you, Ruth Shepard, she and her staff, they make my job so easy. I think some of them out there working, yeah. We also want to thank Bobby Roberts and the Central Arkansas Library System for co-sponsoring this event. They do it every year, and they do a tremendous job. We had several volunteers helping us tonight, so I want to thank our volunteers also for helping us out with tonight's event. We know that many of you are friends of JCA, you support JCA, and we thank you for that, and you support the values of JCA. And because of that, there are some things we want to bring to your attention, some good things we got going on this year. There's a book coming out. It's a forthcoming book. It's called The Company We Keep, and Ruth is actually writing this book. I guess that would be the word to say, but she's got biographies in there of people who have been honored at this function as well as the humanitarian dinner. And so it's coming out. It's going to premiere at our annual humanitarian dinner, which is going to be a big deal this year. We really want everybody to be a part of that. The dinner is going to be on April 11th, and that book will be coming out then. But if you want to pre-order, you can definitely do that. But it's going to be a great book about some great individuals. We also have what we call the Our Town Institute of Inclusive Leadership. Now, this begun in Little Rock over 20 years ago, and then we stopped doing it for about a decade. And last year was the first year we offered it again. And I can tell you personally, I went to it myself years ago, changed my life, and many people that go to it say it's life-changing because it gives you a totally different perspective from the way you were brought up or the culture you were brought up, and really opens up your eyes to the way things are out here in the world. And it helps you look at people from a different perspective. And so we're asking you, if you have people that in your corporation that may be interested, it's going to be February 27th through noon on March the 1st. And I will tell you, those 2 or 3 days will definitely be worth it for you if you want to attend, or any of your employees. So definitely want to make sure you know about that. There's also going to be a play reading that's co-sponsored between the Arkansas Rep and the Argenta Community Theater on Monday, March 18th. Now this play is titled 8, and it's based on the actual transcripts from the Proposition 8 case for marriage and equality that took place in California. This documentary is being staged across the United States in parts, and it will be read here in Arkansas by community leaders and professional local actors. So that's going to be on March 18th. We have materials about the book that I mentioned earlier, The Company We Keep, and our town workshop, and the play reading near the entrance. So if you're on your way out, if you would check with Rita Fagan or Mimi Gavigan, they'll be there to answer any questions that you may have. In just a moment, you're going to get a chance to meet our honorees. Many of you already know them, and you know the great accomplishments that they've done, and I'll let you hear from them. But what I'd like for you to do now is recognize some of their family members. So I'd ask that you please stand and remain standing so we can welcome you. With Estella Morris, we have several what we would call honorary family groups here. So we have our veterans, we have VA employees, we have members of AKA, and we have a circle of Friends members. All right. With Rennie Rue, we have her daughter, Prentice McIntosh, and her son, Richard Werner. With Billy Thomas, we have Billy, Aaron, Takita, Ionia Thomas, and Billy's sister, Paulette Bell. It is now my pleasure to introduce Monsignor John O'Donnell, who will share some of the special memories of his friend, Father Joe Biltz. Following Father O'Donnell's remarks, Ruth Shepard will introduce our honorees. Monsignor? Okay.
Thanks very much. Obviously, a great privilege for me to be here tonight with all you beautiful people. I feel like I'm home. I can relax and be John O'Donnell with all you wonderful people. And such a privilege for me to be able to talk about my old friend Joe Biltz. And I'm not going to spend obviously a lot of time on it, but Ruth thought it would be a good idea if we just rehearsed Joe Biltz so that people who never heard of Joe Biltz or even didn't know who he was could just kind of learn a little something about him, what kind of a guy he was. And obviously we are where we came from, but that's not true because we keep changing, at least if we're growing, and we keep developing. And that's what happened to the metamorphosis, I might call it, of Joe Biltz. And just very briefly, Joe was a native of Little Rock. His daddy died while he was in elementary school. And Joe was brought up pretty strictly in the Catholic Church, went to Catholic school and all that. And great tradition of Catholicism. His mom happened to be the secretary, private secretary for Bishop Fletcher, Albert Fletcher, who was from an old Arkansas family like John Gould Fletcher, our Pulitzer Prize winning poet and all that, and who was a grand man, Bishop Fletcher. So he picked Joe to be the carrier. This is such an anachronism when I think about it, to carry the Capamagna. Now, what is the Capamagna? In those days, we're talking about the 40s now, or 30s. In those days, if you can believe it, the bishop wore the great cape, and that's the Capamagna, the magnificent cape. And it was, about like the length of this room. And they always had a page boy carrying. I mean, this thing is so medieval, it's hard to believe it. It was in our lifetime. And Joe was a young, handsome kid, black hair, just good looking, and very talented and athletic and everything. And he as a little kid would carry the Capamagna, dressed in a red cassock and all that, And his mama was so proud of him. So Joe went into the seminary to become a priest, and when he got there, Bishop Fletcher thought, well, this is a pretty smart guy. We'll send him off to Catholic University of America to become a theologian, to learn his theology. So along with Joe Biltz went John O'Donnell, me, to study English literature, to learn how to speak Southern, you know, which I did. Let's see, Everett Ballman, who was in scripture. Dave Boileau, who was a PhD from Louvain University in Belgium. He went back to postgraduate work and everything. And so the bishop sent all these guys off to get smart and become doctors, etc., and then come back to Little Rock and teach the seminaries. Well, Joe Biltz was very humble, very obedient, very nice, kept all the rules in the seminary, and everybody was attracted to Joe Biltz because he was so sweet and kind. Well, he came out of Catholic University like a lion, man, boom! He hit Little Rock and he said, hey, we got to do something. So he jumped right into it with the rest of us, Clancy and myself and Boileau and Jimmy Drain and Bruce Street. Some of you old heads out here will remember them. I know you're shaking your head. Yeah, I remember them. And the Young Turks, you know, and the Catholic Church. So we started things, and Joe went on and did some things like he thought we should have some racial justice. He thought we should have, interdisciplinary conversations, relationships with other religions, and with the Jews and Catholics and the Muslims, everybody else. And Bishop Fletcher was up there saying, huh, wait a minute. Slow down. And he and Boileau just took off like a gun, you know, and it was fantastic. And worked with guys like Ira Samuels, the rabbi of Anchiamet, which was on Broadway in those days, super guys. Zeke Palmet came along. We have our good rabbi over there, who's now retired, young guy, gee whiz. But we had a great time, and it was an exciting time because we were meeting with like Preacher Dick Hardy out there at Westover Presbyterian, and Flash Gordon down there, and Ed Matthews, well, just too many to mention. But it was so exciting and everything. So sure enough, Joe overstepped the bound. I forget exactly what happened. He did not exactly become a communist, but he was called a pinko. And a do-gooder and a race mixer and one of those ecumeniacs that trying to have everybody together. And so the bishop suspended him because some things he had said. So here's the bishop, the son of the secretary of the holy bishop, and he's suspended by her boss. He goes out to Oregon and he connects with who else but Cesar Chavez and lettuce growers, but got a job teaching theology at Mount Angel College at Portland, and sure enough, the bishop out there suspended him. So then he came back here and did some other things, but unfortunately, he used to jog around the oval out there at St. John's, Pulaski Heights, and Sunday afternoon he was jogging around and he dropped dead. He was only 57 years old, but died very suddenly. It was a tragedy, you know, for all of us. But the thing about Joe was, part of his metamorphosis was, he was very serious, very holy looking and everything, and very committed, but at the same time had a great sense of humor. And he was a great mimic and imitator. And I was up at CU with them when, most of you won't remember this, but the president was Ike Eisenhower. And we were sitting at the university at the club or whatever it was and watching TV in those days in that little tube there. And the Republican convention was on downtown. And of course they nominated President Eisenhower to repeat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So somebody, I think it was Joe Biltz, said, let's get in the car and go down to the White House and meet Ike when he gets back to the White House. We said, yeah, good idea. So Clancy and O'Donnell and Biltz, we all pile in the old car. We go down to the back door of the White House, and in those days they didn't have all the security they have nowadays, obviously. And we stood there, and sure enough, here comes the limousine. I think there was only one other car with the Secret Service in it, and we were standing at the gate, you know, like a bunch of fools. And and Ike comes and he stops, and Mamie was sitting there with a big bouquet of red roses and everything. And Ike opens up the window and said, "Hey, Father, how you know?" And so he went and he said, "Well, we saw Ike, let's go back." So we go back. And this is where Joe becomes the mimic. We got back to the university, and he said, hey, he said, I just thought of something. I said, what? Suppose Bishop Fletcher's back there at Little Rock watching TV, the news, and he sees us on TV, and he said, I sent those boys up there to study. What are they doing up there at the White House? And the clincher was, the bishop would say, golly, don't they know that Eisenhower's a Republican? But that's the kind of guy Joe was. You know, he's just fantastic, and low key, and had a great time with it. But again, very, very, very effective. And you can't think about Joe without thinking about all our contemporaries, like ministers from every denomination, the good rabbis, and people who didn't belong to any religion whatsoever, just have a little common sense out here, and we all can live together in peace and freedom and justice, etc. So that's the Joe Biltz that this award is named for, and I think you can take that home and think about it, okay? Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Father John. He's always such a hit, isn't he? I know. After Father Biltz's death, his sister, Mary Mobley, was the one, I think, who came up with the idea of allowing NCCJ at the time and JCA to give this award in Father Joe's name. And I think it's pretty special that we have this opportunity. And I want to recognize the folks from this. The first Father Joseph Biltz Award was given in 1987, and we have recognized some remarkable people since then. And so I think I know most of the ones who are in the audience, but if you will help me by standing up, then I'm going to introduce you. And we'll start with, but stand up as a body, those of you who have received the Father Biltz Award before. We've got, and stay standing because I'm going to introduce you. We've got, Jean, stay standing because I'm going to introduce you. Jean, stand up. Freeman McKendra, Pat Lyle, Henry Tuck, Susan May, Anna Cox, Freddie Nixon, Jean Gordon, Patricia Youngdahl, Joyce Williams, Ted Holder, Al Porter, Reverend William Robinson. Aren't they fabulous? It really is a gathering of friends, isn't it? So it's my pleasure now to get to introduce the folks that we are honoring tonight. Estella Morris. Estella got her first job with the Veterans Administration by having the right experience and being in the right place at the right time. Following the landslide election of Ronald Reagan in 1980, VA officials knew that there would soon be a hiring freeze on federal jobs. Estella had worked as a VISTA, Volunteers in Service to America, member since 1977. And because of that, she could be hired quickly without a competitive process. The VA had only one open position, and they knew they wanted Estella, who began her work with veterans in their independent living program in Little Rock. 33 years later, Dr. Estella Morris serves as program manager at the Comprehensive Homeless Center for the Central Arkansas Veterans Healthcare System, Department of Veterans Affairs. Estella was born in Dermott, Arkansas, and graduated from high school there in 1966. At that time, in the heart of the Delta, everything was still segregated, despite the changing landscape in other areas of our state. Estella won 4-H contests in sewing, cooking, and public speaking, which gave her the opportunity to attend a national 4-H meeting in Chevy Chase, Maryland. She particularly credits her godmother, Evangeline Brown, who was also her English teacher, with preparing her for a life beyond the small town of Dermott. Estella says that in English class, she learned literature and American history. She knew what the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the Constitution meant to her people and to her personally. Those were the amendments that outlawed slavery, made African Americans full United States citizens, and gave all men, regardless of race, the right to vote. Women were not given the right to vote until the 19th Amendment. For college, Estella attended the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, and she lived in the first integrated women's dorm in 1966. By the time Estella earned her undergraduate degree in 1976, she was married to Sherry Caleb and had 2 young children. She joined VISTA the following year. The VISTA program had grown out of President Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty and the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964. It was considered by some to be the most radical of all the anti-poverty programs of that era. Through her VISTA work, Estella particularly learned the value of collaboration. She explains that the National Volunteers were often young and a bit starry-eyed, thinking they were going to eradicate poverty. Therefore, they were most effective when they were matched with local volunteers, like her, who had a sense of realism and an understanding of the dynamics of the community. She also learned to work with a diverse group of people with unique gifts and viewpoints who came from all over the United States. She's been using those lessons about collaboration and appreciating diversity ever since in her work with veterans. Estella describes the current work with veterans as no wrong door. In short, the Comprehensive Homeless Center is prepared to accept and assist homeless veterans no matter how they enter the system or what their specific needs might be. About Estella's work, Dr. Greer Sullivan, who's here tonight, where's Greer? There she is, says, Dr. Morris has been a leader in the VA locally, regionally, and nationally in the movement to end homelessness among military veterans. She is recognized within and outside of the VA as a national expert and advocate in the area, and she has brought national attention to Little Rock because of her advocacy. When Estella first entered the VA system, there was a culture of letting the veterans remain in a hospital or nursing home without much emphasis on rehabilitation. By 1987, there was more focus on residential shelters, but they had limited space, and the concern of the VA was still primarily the medical needs of the veterans. Over time, Estella has broadened the scope of concerns and available services to include housing, employment, and successful reintegration into the community and reunification with their families. They have, for example, instituted quarterly events for vets and their families, such as a fishing derby and a fall festival. The local staff has grown from 1, Estella, to 35 in 2012. Her leadership has resulted in the Central Arkansas office being designated in 1994 as a comprehensive homeless center, one of only 7 such designations at that time. In addition, the Little Rock office was named a Center of Excellence by the Department of Veterans Affairs in 1997, 1999, and 2002, the only facility in the nation to receive this distinction all 3 years that it was given. Over the years, the office has collaborated with local groups such as the Salvation Army, St. Francis House, and the Arkansas Department of Human Services, and with national agencies such as VISTA, HUD, and the Department of Labor. For example, in 1988, Estella applied for and received, and I don't even know how she managed this, 2 VISTA members who provided AIDS education, 2 VISTA members who worked on housing issues, and 2 VISTA members who specialized in job placement, all in 1 year. In 1992, the Central Arkansas office also became one of the first 18 in the nation to offer the HUD VASH, Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Services, to eligible vets and their families. The VA currently serves veterans of wars ranging from World War II to Afghanistan. Estella explains that following each war, our veterans return with problems unique to their service, and it takes the VA some time to appropriately respond to or care for those returning service members. For example, the first diagnosis approved for PTSD didn't occur until 1980. Fortunately, Estella has been an advocate for the homeless since before it became popular and at a time when there was a great deal of public disdain for homeless persons. According to Greer, Estella tirelessly built and staffed our center to make it what it is today. She has established wide-ranging outreach across Arkansas and fought to bring more resources to improve the lives of our homeless veterans. Along the way, Estella returned to Jackson State University to earn her PhD in social work. She has also served on many boards and committees, including chairing the Community Advisory Board for the Mental Illness Research Education and Clinical Center at the VA. The CAB actively brings the real concerns of veterans and family members to the table to assure that those concerns are appreciated by the leadership. She served as the Regional Homeless Coordinator for 14 years and served for 10 years as a board member of the Women's Project, helping develop a prison project for incarcerated women and working on such difficult issues as homophobia, hate crimes, and domestic violence. She also served on the board of the Arkansas AIDS Foundation and is a current board member of the Central Arkansas Team Care for the Homeless Coalition. In 2012, she chaired a program at Mosaic Templars Cultural Center that looked at the first African American teachers to desegregate schools in the Little Rock School District following the signing of the 1964 Civil Rights Bill. Obviously, Estella Morris is not afraid to tackle anything. Greer notes about her, what I especially value about Dr. Morris is that she has never been afraid to speak the truth, even when the truth was not popular. She has spoken openly about racism, poverty, and discrimination in situations when it made many in the room uncomfortable. This kind of advocacy is greatly needed in Arkansas and requires great courage. I can count on Dr. Morris to tell me what I need to hear. Estella's children are grown now, and on Election Day 2012, she attended a play performed by her grandson's 4th grade class. She was delighted that he and the other students were learning all about the constitutional amendments, the same ones she learned about back in Dermott in her segregated school. Things have changed for the better in the years since Estella was in school, and many of the better things that have happened for our veterans have been because of her. Estella Morris.
Good afternoon. You mentioned one of the teachers that was among the first to desegregate the schools, and I just happened to see Joyce Williams on my way in, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Would you stand, please? One of the first teachers to desegregate the. I feel like I need to have somebody stick a pin in my head. It might be a little inflated at this point, and I'm sure you've heard all you care to hear about the work that I've done But I stopped to reflect on social justice work and just about the areas you're looking at, inclusion, acceptance, and justice for all. And one thing I realized is that social justice work is not something you can really think about. You just do it. If you think about what you're doing, if you have to think about it, you're not really doing it. You're not really into it. But if your heart is in social justice work, you do it because it has to be done. Before I go on, I'd like to also thank my husband in absentia of 45 years. He doesn't like dress-up affairs. My daughter is in Atlanta working on her master's now, and my son's in Maine working on a construction project. But when I think about having the opportunity to participate in an affair such as this that is named for a man as wonderful as Father Joe, I have to think about the fact that what he did is that he passed down what he was doing. We are doing his work. And everything about social justice work has to be perpetual, or it's for nothing. It's for nothing. It means nothing at all if we do it and it stops with us. I was looking at a quote from Dr. King that said, "All progress is precarious, and solutions of one problem brings us face to face with another problem." So that it means that the problems are ongoing, they're not going to stop. I'm going to stop right here because there was someone who thought enough of me and what I do to nominate me for this award. Because as I said, for me it's a labor of love. I don't think about it. I do it because I've been trained to do it. And I know it has to be done. But I want to thank Dr. Sullivan. Dr. Sullivan said to me that I could not accept this award without a hat. So I guess it's clear I'm a hat person. And this is one of my vintage ostrich hats, but for Dr. Sullivan, I had to go with the Duchess of Cambridge. So this is for you, Greer, just for you. The ostrich was for everybody else. I was listening to former honorees, and I think about Henry Tuck back in the early days when we were working on homelessness and working with our house. And I think about Reverend Robinson, who was so active when we started working on the whole crack cocaine issue, and everybody thought it was going to come and it was going to go away. Reverend Robinson is one of those people who believes in the perpetuation of the social justice work. Train those who are going to come after us. He was one of those who was a mentor to me. Also, Freeman McKendra, who was the VISTA leader at the time that I came into the VISTA program, who worked closely with my mother on so many social justice issues. I cannot ignore a member of my circle of friends, Judge Ollie Neal, who was also a VISTA volunteer and who was so effective with the Lee County Cooperative Care Clinic in Mariana. I'm trying to think of other names that you call. I was trying to jot them down as you were going through. But truly it is a gathering of friends because so many here have been involved with the social justice work, the work on homophobia, with the Women's Project. All of those things have been so necessary. I was thinking about my work with homeless veterans, and I tell you, of all the work that I have done, I think this has been the most rewarding. I've had the opportunity to learn so much from them, to see the things that they have had to endure, and to see them be able to come out and excel at the level that they have at this point. We recognized a group a couple of weeks ago of female veterans who have achieved so much and who are moving on to assist those others who are in similar situations. Tonight we have another group that are members of a peer support group as well. And these are people who have, against all odds, been able to do well and been able to move forward. And I'm going to ask them to stand again so you can see them separate from the other honorary family members that I have. If the veterans from the peer groups, if you guys would stand again so they could just see you. One of my favorite groups is Sweet Honey and the Rock. One of my favorite songs is Ella's Song. And Dr. Bernice Johnson says in the lyrics to Ella's Song, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes." Social justice is about those who believe in freedom. She also says, "Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way the struggle survives." So for me, you've heard all of those things that I've done, but they don't mean anything if I can't teach someone else to carry this fight on. And that's my focus now. And I leave you with one of my favorite poems, "The Bridge Builder." If you know it, you can sing along. "An old man traveling a lone highway came at the evening cold and gray to a chasm, vast, deep, and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. That sullen stream had no fears for him. But he turned when he reached the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. 'Old man,' said a fellow pilgrim near, 'you waste your strength in building here. Your journey ends with the ending day. Never again must you pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you a bridge at the eventide?' The builder lifted his old gray head. 'Good friend, in the path I've come,' he said, 'there follows after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him.'" This was an award that held great significance to me because I've done social justice work for so many years. Just the idea that it's something that's been recognized outside of my immediate group, my immediate family, carries a lot of weight for me, especially now that I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, where our focus is on service to all mankind. This really contributes to all that we do in that arena as well.
I'm going to tell a little tiny story on Estella, because she called today to change the name on one of the reservations or whatever, and she said, "I had several friends who said they wanted to come, but they heard it was sold out." She said, "I feel like a rock star." And I think that you and Billy and Renee are all rock stars. So. And this is all about Renee. For Renee Rule, the Pause in Prison project all began with a loaf of banana bread. And she readily admits she's not much of a baker. In early August of 1994, Hoyt Clines was scheduled to die by lethal injection at Arkansas's Tucker Maximum Security Prison in the first triple execution scheduled in the United States in 32 years. Clines and two other men had been convicted of murder, and the planned triple execution drew media attention from across the nation. Renee had read in Mara Leverett's article about the men that for his last meal, Clines had requested a hamburger, French fries, and banana bread. According to the news story, the prison would not be able to provide the banana bread. So for some reason, Renee decided to make some banana bread and take it to Hoyt Klein's. That decision set Renee on a path that resulted in the Pause in Prison program, which began 20 years later. Renee arrived at the gates of Tucker Max in the early morning, and the area was crowded with news people. She found a guard and asked if her gift of banana bread could be delivered to Hoyt Klein's. The guard explained that no food could be brought into the prison for health reasons. Frustrated by the inanity that a condemned man's health was of concern, Renee suggested that she might take her case to the members of the media nearby. She also offered to eat some of the bread herself or cut it up, anything that might make them relent. Because she wouldn't leave, eventually the warden came out to talk with her, again explaining that delivering food to a prisoner was strictly prohibited. She asked him if he could deliver the bread to Klein's. He ultimately agreed that if she placed the bread on a nearby picnic table, he would indeed deliver it to Klein's. Renee went home, hoping that the bread got through and thinking that that was the end of the story. But around 9 p.m. that night, Renee received a collect call from Hoyt Klein's. He called to thank her for the banana bread. She explains, still with amazement, that their conversation was not sad. They talked for 48 minutes, exactly, according to the charge on her phone bill. They talked about his family and how he was feeling. He said such things as, "God is waiting for me, and I'll get to ride my bike again." She offered to come down to the prison to be with him when he was scheduled for execution the next day, but Hoyt said that wasn't necessary. She asked if there was anything that she could do, and he shyly asked, "Could you build me a chapel here at Tucker Max?" Along with many others, Renee worked for 15 years on keeping that commitment to Klein's. The little chapel, named for Frank King, who did a great deal of work on death row, is built to allow all religious groups a neutral place to worship. There is space for Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, all faiths. Renee, a devout Christian, fought hard to keep all crosses and symbols of Christianity out of the chapel, and told several stories about how Christians were sometimes her biggest enemy in keeping the chapel for all men. The chapel has a library, a counseling room with soundproof panels so inmates can talk to their counselors without guards hearing what they are saying, and a large worship area with excellent sound equipment. Above the podium reads one sign, "Welcome to all who enter here." Because of her long association with the leadership of the Arkansas Department of Corrections, they were willing to listen when Renee suggested the Pause in Prison program. That's not to say that they approved everything immediately, but Renee was willing to meet multiple times with Director Ray Hobbs, with the Board of Corrections, and with Governor Mike Beebe to get the program approved. After overcoming their initial reluctance, Renee traveled with Department of Corrections personnel to learn more about the program in the Missouri prison system. There they were advised, start the program in the maximum security unit. Those inmates have the most to gain from this opportunity. The model is simple. Professional dog trainers teach inmates who have earned the privilege with a good record to train dogs to become good pets. Dogs are chosen from those that were otherwise going to be euthanized, and after being cared for and trained for approximately 8 weeks, they must pass a rigorous test to be eligible for adoption. Begun in 2011, Pause in Prison has since placed over 135 dogs in 5 Arkansas prisons. Dogs are saved, and inmates have something to do with which gives them pleasure and benefits others. Inmates who have earned the opportunity to train a dog will work with the dog up to 8 hours a day. According to prison officials, having dogs, particularly in the maximum security prison, can change the entire culture. And the relationship between prisoners and guards is less adversarial, even friendly. If you want to know how much the Department of Corrections values the program, go to their website. Paws in Prison is the lead story. And there are photos of more than 30 dogs that are available for adoption if you're interested. Renee learned about service and perseverance from her parents, Mary and Tom Prentice. I have to say this word several times. Prentice. I had to help me. Prentice. Thank you. I had a hard time with that today, and I thought it's in here about 6 times now. Because anyway, when Renee was little, she and her 2 brothers and her parents lived for 6 years in Brazil, where her dad served as a Presbyterian missionary. After her dad contracted typhoid and typhus, the family returned to Malden, Missouri, a town of 5,000 and a great place to grow up, according to Renee. Since the town was small and not steeped in the Southern tradition of segregation, Renee had black and white friends, but there was no religious diversity. She never remembers meeting a Jew in Missouri. Her dad preached at 3 small churches each Sunday in Gideon, Campbell, and Malden, and Renee accompanied him to play the piano or organ for the services. Her mother, Mary, had at 16 years old been one of only 6 women admitted to Rice University, but she had dropped out after 1 year to marry. So, when Renee went to college, so did her mother. Mary Prentice earned 2 master's degrees in 5 years. It took Renee a while longer to earn her degree. When Renee was ready to attend college, she chose Trinity University at San Antonio, Texas. By 1978, when she earned her degree in social work from Henderson College, now Henderson State University, she had attended 7 schools, gotten married, and had 2 children, Richard and Prentice Warner. I got it right. Renee's first job out of college was as a social worker in Pine Bluff. She says she was the worst possible social worker because she was heartbroken for every person she tried to counsel. Fortunately, she became a member of the Junior League, discovered that she was good at raising money, and she has been doing that ever since. Her first big project was establishing a soup kitchen for the homeless in Pine Bluff, and the program, Neighbor to Neighbor, is still in business almost 3 decades later. After her divorce in 1986, she started a cookbook company and also served as president of the Junior League in Pine Bluff, the first working woman to hold that office. Her marriage to Herb Rule brought her and her children to Little Rock in 1991, and since then she has raised money for many worthy causes, including Second Presbyterian Church, Arkansas Symphony Orchestra, Wildwood Park, the Junior League of Little Rock. Today, she serves as Executive Director of Development at the College of Medicine, University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. And one more story. She unintentionally rocked the social boat shortly after coming to Little Rock, when her daughter Prentice was accepted into Junior Cotillion, which at the time was a traditionally all-white organization for junior high school students to learn the social graces. Renee asked if her daughter's best friend from the cathedral school could join too, and she was told yes. And only when they all showed up in the same room did the adults, including Renee, realize that the best friend was African American. Everyone had the grace to pretend nothing was out of the ordinary. And 3 years later, that best friend was elected queen at the Spring Holly Ball. Renee says that if she had known the race of the best friend, she would have done the same thing on purpose. So whether she's pushing on purpose, like she did to get the banana bread delivered and the Paws in Prison program started, or pushing by accident like she did by integrating the junior cotillion program. We can count on Renee to be pushing us all to do what's right. Renee Rule.
Wow, look at that. Thank you, Ruth. I'm both humbled and honored to receive this award. Honestly, could Arkansas do any better than have Ruth at the helm of this organization? Good job. And to you and your board, I thank you for this wonderful evening. And to Richard and Prentice, I'm one lucky mama. I must quickly admit, I've been looking forward to tonight for a long time, ever since Ruth called. You know, you don't get a chance to talk to state leaders very often, and I'm on it tonight. This room is full of leaders. You get things done, and each of those projects molds and weaves the best community we can offer this generation and the next. So I'm honored to be a part of you. My personal passion is with Arkansas prisons. I preface my remarks with 3 disclaimers. I'm in no way trying to persuade you to leave your area of focus. I would love for you to leave tonight thinking we can work together, and together we'll make both of our projects stronger. Secondly, while I'm critical of the manner in which we are warehousing prisoners, I am a strong advocate of consequences for a crime and believe that our legal system, while it has its problems, is still the best in the world. Finally, and probably most important, anything I say tonight should not be interpreted as criticism of the Arkansas Department of Corrections. Those men and women work for us. We write the laws. We create the system. If there is a problem, it should be laid at our feet. They are simply doing what we tell them to do. If you've been down there and met the security guards and the others that work there, you'd be impressed. Their job is not easy. I salute Mr. Hobbs and his executive staff as they work to care for over 15,000 inmates in Arkansas. I'm warming up. My friends, the system is broken. We are smarter than this as a society. If you commit a crime, then you should be punished and our communities kept safe. So far, we're being logical. But my friends, if you're warehoused for 25 years in a 4x8 concrete cell without the correct behavior modification and anger management and substance abuse, then how in the hell do we think you're going to come out a different person? And why would we be surprised when 88% of those 15,000, that's 13,200, come back into our communities a better criminal, still battling addiction problems, a madder human, older, and with absolutely no life skills to prevent the same mistakes? And why then are we surprised when 42% of those, that would be 5,544 of our inmates, go back into the system? We know better. Research has shown us where the brain patterns move when we warehouse people and or mistreat them for prolonged periods of time. Why, if you treated an animal in the zoo like we allow some humans to be punished in our prisons, there would be a deafening public outcry for change immediately. As Don Tyler says, if you want different results, we have to do things differently. So then how and why do I think that a silly 4-legged dog can even begin to tackle such a complex problem? Well, let me tell you. The Department of Corrections, it's run by humans, it's impacted by humans, and it's driven by humans. And we know that those silly 4-legged creatures, whether they're called Jack, Dixon, Elwood, May, or Henry, can soften a warden's heart. It can soften a broken man's heart with 3 life sentences on his head, and a woman convicted of shooting her husband can fall in love again with a little dog. How? Well, we don't have all those answers yet, but we know it's working. It's kind of like science tells us a bumblebee is too heavy to fly, but all of us in this room have seen bumblebees fly. Maybe it is because a dog is the one thing in life that loves you more than you love yourself. Maybe it is because the training of the dog and teaching it behavior modification imprints new behavior on you. But this is what I really think. Maybe, just maybe, it is that for the first time in a long time, if ever, that inmate is in sync with our society and the concept of goodness and helping others, and is thereby rewarded versus punishment. When the program began, we had over 200 inmates apply for 5 dogs at Tucker Max. 200 out of 543. Half of the inmates there wanted to try their hand at taking a dog that was scheduled to die, retrain it, send it back into the community better than it arrived. It's working, and it's saving us tax dollars. Is it oversimplistic to think that when our citizens break the law and justice is served and they are sent to prison, that we do whatever we need to do to, quote, send them back into the community better than when they arrived, and ultimately save our tax dollars for another cause? In closing, this is my passion. I know dogs won't be the sole solution for this mammoth complex problem in our prison, but I also know this. For some inmates, their world has been changed because of the love of a dog. And I know this, 185 dogs are alive today because of those inmates. And I know this, that dogs are touching children and families with a positive energy all over our state. And I know that Lily is changing the faces of people in nursing homes with her slobbery licks and wagging tail. And Latte is helping a child with cerebral palsy navigate that awkward wheelchair. And Sam is assisting children in reading classes. Those are complex and mammoth issues, and the dog and the inmate who trained them are changing those. But probably my all-time favorite story is about Ginger Rogers. She was a mutt. She was scheduled to die in 2 days, and we took that mutt, Ginger Rogers. And tonight, a young autistic boy in Cabot sleeps through the night after 6 years of never sleeping more than 2 hours. So for him, 24 hours a day, Ginger Rogers is by his side and helps him feel safe. Ginger Rogers has changed his life and his family's life forever. Thank an inmate for that one. Ruth said it. I'm a lousy social worker, but I can raise some money, and I'm stubborn as hell. You have an idea of how to change this systemic problem in Arkansas prisons? I'll listen. And together we will work to bring just communities for all Arkansans. Thank you.
Well, I'm honored, most of all, because I look around the room and there's all these people that I admire. I don't put myself in that category, so to have the group of peers choose me is probably the highest honor that I can think of. I think that this will be the group that changes Arkansas and moves it towards the next step so that we're ready for the next generation. And truly we will be diverse, and truly we will be, all men will be created equal. And I'm just so proud to be a participant and to be honored by them. I really am. I'm humbled by it all. Thank you.
And we have another one. I saw you over there rolling your eyes at one point. One of the first things that you notice about Dr. Billy Thomas is that he's soft-spoken. But he doesn't need a big voice. He has big plans. He wants the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences Center for Diversity Affairs to be nationally known for its work to, and I quote, enhance the education of our students, reduce racial and ethnic health disparities in our state, and provide an environment in which all employees and views are welcomed. To accomplish this mission, he leads a staff of 10 that strives to interact with and serve all components of UAMS, including the 6 academic departments, the 7 institutes, and the university hospital. And I will say, because of Renee and Dr. Thomas, we have a lot of UAMS folks here in the audience tonight, and I'm so thrilled that you could come. Billy was born the 11th of 12 children of Jake and Clyde Tyler Thomas. His parents were sharecroppers in the small town of Tyronza, Don't you just hate it when those folks on TV mispronounce Dardanelle or whatever? So I did that on purpose. Tyronza, is that right, is in the northeast corner of Arkansas. Billy said that they knew most everyone in their town of 600 residents. Until Billy was in the 6th grade, he attended the colored school, and he remembers those as good years. And after his grade school burned down, he learned firsthand the downside of integrated schools. He remembers that many of the African American children were unable to assimilate in the integrated schools, and there were some teachers who didn't think the African American students were smart enough to succeed. He still mourns what he calls the loss of people with enormous potential who could have gone on to contribute a great deal to society. Billy graduated from high school in Tyronza, and with the constant encouragement of his high school principal and his stepmother, he decided to attend college at nearby Arkansas State University in Jonesboro. He majored in science and finished his degree in December of 1975. After graduating, he enrolled in graduate school to pursue a master's in zoology and was later offered a graduate assistantship by the chair of the ASU Science Department. Billy became the only African American student in the graduate school pursuing a science degree. He took anatomy and biology classes, and he found that he was often held to a different standard than his white classmates. Billy considered pursuing a PhD in basic science, but he knew that would be a very difficult field. So when his best friend from ASU applied to medical school at UAMS, Billy thought, if he can do it, so can I. And Billy was admitted to UAMS in 1976. Following graduation from med school, he did his residency in pediatrics at Arkansas Children's Hospital, and he completed a 3-year fellowship in neonatology in Cleveland, Ohio. Along the way, he married Beverly Dean, and subsequently they had 3 children, Aaron, Billie Jean, and Jessie. And they also have 1 granddaughter, Ionia. Billy was still interested in doing scientific research, and when a position opened for a faculty member in neonatology at UAMS with a lab for research at Arkansas Children's Hospital, he gladly returned to his home state. Since returning to Arkansas, he has been able to do some important work in the field of rickets, or bone disease, and vitamin D in infants, in addition to teaching and seeing patients. When Associate Dean of Minority Affairs Dr. Philip Rayford was ready to retire in '99, Dr. Dodd Wilson, then Chancellor of UAMS, asked Billy to head up the Office of Minority Affairs. Wilson assured Billy that he would still be able to do some research and see patients, but it didn't take Billy more than a few months in his new position to realize that there was great value to UAMS and to himself in making his efforts in minority affairs more of a full-time commitment. The importance of the office was also recognized when it was renamed the Center for Diversity Affairs, and when Chancellor Dan Ron broadened its mission and this is a quote, in recognition of diversity as an institutional core value, critical to the fulfillment of the mission of UAMS. The focus of the Center for Diversity Affairs is fourfold: diversity, inclusion, equity, and cultural competency. Dr. Billy Thomas and his team are addressing each one. The campus of UAMS is home to more than 80 different nationalities. So what does diversity mean at UAMS? According to Dr. Thomas, diversity is not just about race and ethnic background, but also personality, learning styles, and life experience. Recent presentations for students, faculty, and staff have included topics such as the health of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, and the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator about personality. In a recent article regarding the importance of recruiting a racially diverse student body, Billy wrote, It comes down to whether we as a society and as a healthcare institution believe in the educational benefits of diversity, that it enriches the quality of education for everyone, students and faculty, because individuals with unique personal differences and life experiences contribute to and are part of the learning community. The outcome is a cadre of healthcare workers who are more open and wiser about the diversity of patients that they are trained to care for. Our job is to accept, promote, and embrace diversity so that we as a society may reap the benefits in the future. About inclusion, Billy says, inclusion is creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable. Not just our foreign nationals, but all of our in-state students need to feel welcomed. Only in an inclusive environment can we expect all employees to be seriously committed to assuming personal responsibility for contributing to achievement of organizational goals. For more than 20 years, the center has also offered summer enrichment programs for kindergarten through college students, particularly from minority groups, to introduce them to the possibilities of a career in healthcare. To promote equity, UAMS is pursuing the following strategies: a review of current admission processes so that disadvantaged students of promise are not excluded, investment in student support services such as mentoring, tutoring, wellness, and an early warning system to identify and help students in academic distress, and development of a post-baccalaureate program for students aspiring to enter the College of Medicine who might have failed to make the first cut on admissions, but who have the capacity to make fine medical professionals with some investment by the university. About cultural competence, Billy has written, cultural competence extends well beyond the race, ethnic background, or gender of a healthcare provider, but rather is a gestalt of knowledge, skills, and attitudes that every healthcare provider, regardless of training or the degrees after one's name, should aspire to attain. To that end, UAMS is in the midst of myriad initiatives such as revamping curricula, training for providers, and programs to better engage patients in the healthcare system, all to help us become more culturally sensitive and aware. Billy remembers what he discovered in his time as a resident at Arkansas Children's Hospital and his time in Cleveland. It was that the most important skill for a doctor is the ability to communicate with patients, both listening and talking. Billy says, if you will listen, patients will usually tell you what you need to hear to be able to treat them effectively. Billy clearly has the ability to listen, and he is using that skill to make UAMS a more diverse, inclusive, equitable, and culturally competent institution. Chances are good that he will realize his vision of UAMS receiving national recognition for the important work that they are doing every single day. Dr. Billy Thomas.
I need to do more, so to speak, because it really is a group effort, so to speak. Before I say anything else, I'm not going to say a lot, but I do want to, my wife Beverly is over there. Her name was not on here, so I know that if I don't really say that Beverly is here, then that would be a problem. So I want to say that. And I do want to recognize some other people. There's some of my church members here that, you know, they always support what I do, so it's really great to have them here. And, you know, and just talking about and thinking about my family, none of this stuff that any of us do, you can't do it alone, so to speak. We can't. And, you know, my family has really been, what I am is because of my family. you know, my wife, we've been married a lot of years. I was trying to remember the number. I can't remember the number, but a lot of years. A lot of years, and but you know, I'm not around. I'm not really a handy guy around the house, so you know, you're better off not letting me do stuff. So she doesn't bother me about a lot of stuff, and I've broken a lot of things more than I've fixed a lot of things. But you know, it's given me an opportunity to do things and to think of things and to be involved in other things that what I like to do. This is what I like to do. So she's been good in that way. And as far as my being from Tyronza, you know, I think, and I was thinking the other day, I'm really not that much different than I was in Tyronza. I'm older, of course, but, you know, I think of why or who I think I am. You know, I think all those values and virtues and all that stuff were really started in Tyronza. You know, and I think of, you know, the people that I actually went to school with, the people I work with, and the people you sharecrop with. It creates you as to who you are. And you patch on a few things as you go along, and we all evolve. And as was said earlier, we change, but it all starts at the very elementary level. And as you said, I'm a product, as you are, from Durban. I'm a product of a segregated school system, then an integrated school system, and affirmative action. And, you know, and I do feel that there were some casualties to the war, but it was necessary. So and we move on. So coming from that background and looking at affirmative action, and as I always say, I think we always have to talk about affirmative action. It's under fire all the time. It's a different name now, but it's under fire. All the people in this room probably would not be here. Many of us would not be here if it not been for affirmative action. Women, minorities, we really benefited from that. So, and that's kind of part of what we do now, although we call it diversity. It's a much calmer name, you know, but we still are moving forward to create an environment that is inclusive, that is diverse. And I want to just thank some people, if that's okay. And I've saw a lot of my pediatric partners here. You know, Dr. Pfizer's over there and Dr. Jacobs is there. But I want to thank Dr. Bob Pfizer first because, you know, I was a medical student here, then I did a residency here, and he actually had a vision. And all of us kind of attest to that. And he actually had a vision to grow Children's Hospital or the pediatric department. And so I owe him a great deal for doing that. And that's actually one of the reasons I came back, you know, it's because he was here and Don Hill was here and there was the potential to do a lot of stuff. So I really want to recognize the people in pediatrics. I also want to recognize Dr. Arrington. I don't know that he's here, probably not, but you know, the thing, we all have division chairs, department chairs and all that, but he never actually told me what to do, which is what I really needed. You know, there are some people that are overbearing, just to be blunt, but he allowed me to do whatever I thought I wanted to pursue from a basic science standpoint, clinical standpoint. And even when I got into this administrative stuff, you know, I just sent him a letter after the fact, and he said, okay, maybe it should have been done differently, but I'm just saying that he was very supportive and allowed me to pursue the path that I wanted to pursue. So I really appreciate it. And I also want to say about Dr. Jacobs and Dr. Fields, they claim they taught me everything that I know, but, you know, I don't know about that. So as far as what we do in the center, and we do a lot of things in the center, I want to recognize Bill Bognight if he's still here. Now, Bill, stand up for just a second. Because when I came here in 1976, Bill actually, the Office of Minority Affairs was started in 1976. It was started primarily because it was needed. Of course, there were federal pushes, But there was also a local group of minority physicians and dentists that got together and said, well, you need to do something to increase the number of minority students that are enrolled. And so Bill became the first director in 1976. And he's been around for a long time. I said that the other day, but in a very positive way for a long time. And I think he's been here 36 or 37 years. Is that right? 37. And he actually retired the last of in December. But we owe Bill a great deal as far as the dedication and just sticking to what he set out to do. Because it's really not easy when you think about what you do in these offices. I mean, if you look nationally, the problems are the same no matter wherever you go. You have the same problems. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, diversity or inclusion, it's not really put on the table, not squarely on the table. You know, you do it over here on the side. But fortunately, as you mentioned, Dr. Ron has a different idea, a different perspective. And so he's allowed us to come to the table, so to speak. But Bill started, and he's been around, and I really appreciate all that he's done for all those years. I think the other thing I want to mention is there are some other people here from the Center for Diversity Affairs that may have walked out. I think Nick and Pat were here. But the other thing I want to say, you mentioned about the academic enrichment programs, and that's really at the heart of what we do. I mean, we have programs from the kindergarten through college, and we do some things certainly in medical school. But I just want to mention it because, you know, we have moved along and we have gotten our numbers up, and we're in a better position. But if it had not been for those entitlement programs, we would not be where we are. You really need those kinds of things to create a pool of students. And the admissions committee meets, and the College of Medicine meets tomorrow. And, you know, and I've been looking at this for 12, 15 years, looking at numbers. And the numbers don't really change as far as the pools are concerned. Certainly there are issues that we need to attend to, you know, very, very early. But, you know, the numbers are there, and you just kind of keep getting the same numbers. So we can't really get rid of these types of programs like enrichment programs or even the post-bac program that might create another pool of students. Now, I could kind of go on about this a long time, but that's kind of at the heart of what we do. But more than that, we've expanded in the last 2 or 3 years to include all the colleges. We're not just the College of Medicine, you know, we're all the colleges. And we are expanded to include not just race, gender, ethnicity. We're expanding to include marginalized populations to the point that we really do look at disabilities. We look at the LGBT community. We look at anyone that is not at the table, so to speak. And that's what we plan to do for the next, well, however long I'm there, I don't know. So for a while anyway. And, you know, and as you say, my hope is that we can become a center of excellence, and that, you know, when somebody wants to know, well, what's the model for doing this, I want them to think of this institution. And so that's really what I want to do. We're now called the Center for Diversity Affairs. We're no longer the Office of Minority Affairs. And our goal now is diversity and inclusion. And what that has done, it has allowed us, the position I have is Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Inclusion. It is a position, that position is great. It's a step forward for UAMS. It's a step forward for us because it allows us to bring diversity and inclusion to the cabinet level. It allows us to discuss it with the leadership. So, and that's a big thing for us, you know, rather than us just talking about it at committee meetings and it going nowhere, then it gives us a segue into actually pushing some things forward. So, kind of in summary, I'm excited about what we can do in the next several years, and I'm looking forward to making some changes, you know, and we're reorganizing now, so hopefully in the next, you know, couple of years we'll have some things on the table that will push us forward. And I do want to say about this group, this is a really diverse group. It seems like a really, really fun group. So I really do appreciate, I don't know how you get nominated or anything. I don't know. So, but I do really appreciate the honor. It is an honor, and I thank you for doing it. But I want to do one last thing. I mean, you all, I'm sure you all looked at the inauguration, and you looked at the parade. And to me, you know, it's just striking that the diversity that was in that parade. And I think, you know, when I think about it, I think if we really look at how we're moving as a nation and how we're moving socially, that was really inclusive. And you look at all those different kinds of people there. And so UAMS, if we are to move forward, then we have to really understand that that's what America is now. You know, I didn't count all the participants, but there were a lot of them. I mean, they had like the Boy Scout Troops 358. They had a Chinese American Community Center folk dance troupe. They had the Central High Tigers. They had Grambling State. They had the Lesbian and Gay Band Association. They had the Native American Women Warriors. They had the Navajo Nation Band. And they had the Utah Hispanic Dance Alliance. And it goes on. But I just think that that's why I'm really optimistic and excited about, and we talk about this all the time, timing is everything. And I think it's a good time. And we do have a gap here that we have to be aggressive in whatever we're going to do. So I think I'll close with that and just say that it is, if we want to be inclusive, then we need to look at the inauguration parade and we need to move forward. And I thank you all for the time. It really is a good group, diverse group of individuals that have a common goal as far as social justice. So for me, it's a great honor. It's a great honor just to be on the same podium with the other honorees. So, and it also kind of pushes me on as far as trying to do more. So, and it validates kind of what we're trying to do. And it's always good to get a pat on the back, especially when you work at an institution as far as UAMS and you're not out in the community. So to be recognized by someone in the community when you're kind of stowed away at a university system is a big deal for me. So I really appreciate it, and it's a really good honor.
Wow. All those speeches were just amazing. Dr. Thomas, I commend you for your efforts. The company I work for, Entergy, I'm executive with Entergy, and we too have a diversity inclusion. So you can see it's being affected all over the nation, all over the city. And so I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. Rennie, you know, I got two daughters that been asking me for a dog for a while. And yeah, after hearing what you said, I may get them one. But can you get me a dog that teaches work ethic? That's what I need. Dr. Morris, you know, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, which is the brother of AKA, and I have met a lot of AKAs, but I had never met one as color coordinated as you. If you didn't know, pink and green is the color, and she's got it. So. But all those speeches were amazing. Man, we did a good job this year, Ruth, of picking our honorees. We did a good job. I tell you what, we call it the Gathering of Friends. I think there's some food left. If there is, feel free to get it, and feel free to mix and mingle, socialize. Don't forget the information I shared about some of the events coming up. You know, Our Town Institute, the play reading. And on April the 11th, mark your calendar, we're going to have our humanitarian dinner. We got two great honorees. I think this is one you do not want to miss. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we don't sell it out. And we've even moved it to the convention center because we're expecting a huge crowd. And also, many of you participated in our walk. It's not till November, but we still want to make you aware of that. So with that being said, we're going to come to a close. But let's give our honorees one more round of applause. Thank you.